Welcome to the Smart Driving Cars podcast. We appreciate you spending some time with us, and we will make it worth your while. This edition is sponsored by the Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, ticker symbol MOTO. For more information, head to motoetf.com. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alain Kornhauser. Hi, Alan.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to have you with us.
And with us for this special edition from Waymo is Assistant General Counsel Dan Smith. Thanks for taking the time to join us, Dan.
Thank you very much, Fred. Very glad to be here and really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about these important subjects.
Really a pleasure having you with us. And this is the most important topic. I mean, it is the topic.
Well, Waymo, as many of you know in our audience, started out as the autonomous car project at Google and has really been leading the pack when it comes to providing autonomous mobility, taking a careful approach at the same time. Maybe you can give our audience just a little more background about what you're doing in Arizona and elsewhere, Dan.
Sure. Thank you, Fred. And as I said, I really do appreciate the opportunity for Waymo to speak to these issues on your broadcast. It's really an interesting broadcast that you both present and provide. You've had some recent guests of great stature, Kirsten Korosek, John Ridge from Ford, my good friend Nat Buse from Uber ATG. So I'm humbled to be part of the broadcast. But you asked, Fred, what we're really doing in Arizona. I think but to be clear, on October 8th, we opened our driverless service to members of the public, resuming a service that we had underway earlier in the year and had paused for a while due to the pandemic. At the time that we were first offering the service for several weeks, we were doing driverless rides, that is essentially providing transportation as a service to many, many people in our operational design domain in Arizona. We were doing 1,000 to 2,000 rides per week, and 5 to 10% of those were completely driverless. We've resumed the service. We're ramping back up. Starting October the 8th. And again, it's a service that's available to the public. We're opening it more and more as capacity becomes available. But it's a service that people use to go about their daily business, to go to the grocery store, to go to a doctor's appointment, to go wherever they need to go. Again, it's the first we're aware of in the world where the public is able to actually hail a vehicle that arrives with no human driver, but with our Waymo driver, the automated driving system in control, and safely take that vehicle to where they want to go.
To me, that is an amazing accomplishment. I mean, that is what all this technology, at least my point of view on it, is supposed to be delivering. That's the value proposition. I mean, you've become a transit operator. I know you may not want that, but in fact you have, and an excellent one in that you are demand responsive. You're actually providing transit from where people are to where they want to go, when they want to go. Oh my goodness. I mean, that's really wonderful. Constrained to an operational design domain. Well, of course. I mean, constrained to, of course, and it's important. It's not cars can't go everywhere. Even the cars that I drive can't go everywhere, even though when they sell it to me, they sort of indicate that I can go climb, as I like to say, the Great Wall with it, but I can't. Okay. But within that, and to do it without a driver is, to me, the only way to have an opportunity to deliver this affordably to the general public. That, to me, that is a different business proposition. But I don't know to you or to whatever, but at least that's the value that I see.
Well, thank you, Alan. And whatever label you put on it, I mean, we generally refer to it as a passenger service or transportation as a service.
Of course.
But I'm glad you obviously recognize, given your expertise, the importance of the whole ODD, or operational design domain concept. These vehicles, a lot of vehicles are out there today in the market with lesser systems, in which the driver, of course, is still in the loop and has to remain attentive and so forth. This system, an automated driving system, particularly at the level at which we're talking about it, performs the entire driving task by itself, and is not reliant in any way on human intervention to perform the driving task safely. So, yeah, we think it's really an important step to be able to offer the service to the public in real time. But again, the idea is to do it in a way where we're ready to offer a service in a particular domain, and not to get ahead of ourselves.
Well, as I look at it, and this is a discussion, but as I look at it, when I drive one of the other systems, I'm responsible. I'm the one that bought it. I'm the one that's responsible. I'm the one that has to get insurance for it. I'm the one that turns it on, turns it off. And if anything goes south, they come to me. I'm responsible, okay? Whereas what you've developed and what you're putting out there is somehow you reach the point to say, I'm going to do all that for somebody, and I'm not going to hold them responsible. I'm going to be responsible. I'm the responsible, meaning I'm putting myself at Waymo. If Waymo's responsible for delivering that, you don't have anybody to point to and say, oh no, I mean, dog ate. I always like to use dog eats my homework, because that's what my students tell me when they're late with their homework.
Even at Princeton.
Even at Princeton, whatever. But how did you? I'd really like. How did you get to the point which you say, yeah, we're gonna. This is one's on us. We're delivering the mobility. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, let me ask. Hopefully, that background noise in which you hear, hopefully that's not disturbing to you. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but
we're not even hearing it.
We're not hearing it.
Great. There's someone out there doing leaf blowing or
yeah,
something.
well, of course. I mean, it's a beautiful day here in the Northeast. Got to
Right.
get rid of those leaves, right?
It's this time to do it.
Yeah, of course.
I think what you're asking, Alan, or should I call you Dr. K? Which might
no, Alan, no, please, no, not Dr. K is good too.
I think what you're asking is about the readiness portion of our safety framework.
Right.
We explained in the document that we put out on October 30th, our methodologies document, that we've got a whole family of interrelated safety methodologies which we use every day. We're working on different platforms, our VIA platform for trucking. We're working, of course, with the service we have in Arizona. We're testing in San Francisco and so forth. But before we make a decision, like particularly the important decision of taking the driver out, we combine all of those methodologies to find their outputs with regard to that particular operational design domain. We have the driving history from testing with the driver in that particular ODD. We have all of the analyses that we went through in our methodologies document in terms of having simulated what a deployment would look like in that particular ODD. And then the great engineers at Waymo, not I am not one, but the great engineers at Waymo, along with our top managers in the safety area, make the decision that, yeah, we're ready. We understand that we have been able to address the risks that we've identified and prioritized. We understand that any residual risk is at a reasonable level. We aren't going out there again getting too far forward on our skis. We have used all those methodologies to come to the point where we have great confidence in our automated driving system to be able to handle that driving task within its operational design domain for which it's designed, and to do so safely. And as a result, that's not. I mean, that's not a lightly arrived at decision. That is a decision in our case that, we've been at this for more than a decade now. And before any such deployment in which the public is going to get into vehicles without a driver, we have done all of the analyses, all of the testing, and all of the essentially developed our own safety case to ensure as far as possible that our confidence is warranted in what we're putting out there.
But that information is being provided to basically all the way up to the top, right? I mean, all the way up to the top, because I like to say, sort of, you're betting the ranch on this.
Well, again, it's
in some sense, you're betting the ranch that this is going to work and it's not going to come back and really bite you. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't let you. Nobody's going to let you pull the driver out of there, right? I mean, or am I over dramatizing the whole darn thing?
No, well, betting the ranch is not a term of art in.
Yeah, no, yeah.
It's not one of our methodologies.
Yeah, no, of course it's not. Of course it's not. But nobody bets the ranch unless they have a sure winner. They are certain that sucker's not going to go south. Right?
No, the whole purpose of the safety methodologies, which we and many others employ, although ours is developed based on our experience with input and learning from so many others. The whole idea is to get to the point where there is a sound basis for determining that readiness. And if in fact in the review that occurs before that next step, whatever that next step is, if something is revealed that that in engineering judgment, good safety judgment is not quite ready, then it's not going to happen.
Right.
Then it's back to address whatever significant risk was identified through the very various methodologies that we've described. And we've got a very high level officials who are informed and are participating in making those decisions. And that's why governance, our high level of governance is an important part of this. It's not two engineers and a lawyer deciding now we're ready. It is, as you say, it's the investment of the entire company in deciding through its organized, solid processes that, we're really ready to do this.
Well, that's what I like so much about the reports that you recently published, because it's, at least as I read them, again, whom I'm some sort of whatever academic, but as I read them, they look to me like it was information that was being presented to individuals who have the responsibility to deliver as safely as they can a system, and that in fact it was targeted to them to understand the substance behind that process, so that they can make the appropriate decision for the company going forward, as opposed to what may be sort of not public relations-y or something like that, or for other purposes. And that's what I thought was really good about it. And certainly as I read it, oh my goodness, this is really solid. And if I would have had the opportunity to have a vote, I would have voted, yes, we're ready. Again, because this is such an important decision to make. As long as you have somebody in there ready to take over, you have somebody, not that you can blame, but somebody that is giving you, when you pull that person doesn't exist anymore. You got to be able to go from here to here and deliver that. I mean, you got to actually do it, right?
Absolutely. The system becomes the driver. Yeah. And without a backup driver.
Without a backup driver, without somebody you can point to, which is really tough.
Well, Dan, one of the things that you talked about in a statement was the importance of this, and hoping that the transparency that you're showing here is going to lead to greater openness within the industry as a whole. Have you heard of any response other than from people like Alan and others who are keen observers here?
Well, the keen observers, as you say, Fred, have been quite positive in terms of what we did put out there. Other companies are at different stages of their development and have different things that they may want to be transparent about, and that's their judgment. But we really think we are an industry leader, and we wanted to lead not just in the technology, but in explaining how the technology works and explaining how the company makes very critical decisions in terms of how to move forward. So, to some degree, there's never enough information. In other words, to some degree, people always want more. But I think our data paper was really a special step. The other paper we issued on October 30th, which delved into the actual performance of the automated driving system in that particular ODD, and so we thought that was revealing in a way that we have not seen from others, but someday perhaps we will.
Yeah,
Well,
that was my reaction to it, is that you revealed it, and you revealed it, not that you would reveal it dishonestly, but you revealed it to what seemed to me to be an internal group who really had to struggle, who was responsible to make the decision, and had to struggle to make sure that in fact, yes, you're ready, and was presented in a way to inform them, to allow them to either raise their hand or not raise their hand, or whatever the process was that you ended up going through. And that's what I really appreciated about what you put out there. Now, you had a damn good story to tell. Okay, you've done a damn good job. I mean, stuff works. Well, and we are what? We're a month in since you started this, right? Haven't heard anything from you. It's great. I don't want to hear anything from I don't want to hear anything from right. It's working, isn't it? You didn't stop.
It definitely working. But as I said, the idea of all these methodologies, because as everybody who's commented and is knowledgeable in the area points out at the beginning, whether it's the Safety First group or whether it's RAND or wherever, anybody involved in transportation safety, as I have been for more than 40 years, understands that once you start moving, the laws of physics mean there is some risk.
Yeah,
and
of course.
The whole idea is to identify and know what the hazards are, identify the risks, address the serious risks, and make an engineering-based judgment on whether or not you're ready. So, I'm glad that you found what we put out there helpful, because the whole idea was to, hey, let's go a step deeper than our safety reports, which were for more of a general audience, without getting too hyper technical. But let's really explain how we use all these methodologies in a complementary way, and then get to the point where we can actually make an educated decision about our readiness for whatever that next step is.
Well, it's interesting, Dan, in a wake, because you started this when in the spring with some of the vehicles going completely driverless, and then along comes the pandemic in full bloom, and things came to a stop. So tell us how you use that time, and then when you come back in October, you're saying we're going to have, for at least a time, if I understand correctly, all of the vehicles without a safety driverless?
We're now offering driverless trips, I think to a greater percentage, if not completely. But what your point, Fred, is what happened in the interim. And I think the important thing to understand there is that's where simulation comes in. Our engineers, and again, I can't applaud them enough. They're just brilliant people, wonderful to work with, best in the business, whether they're software engineers or whether they come from another tech field, or whether they come from the auto industry itself. They come from a variety of different backgrounds. But with our simulation tools, we were able to continue during that period when the vehicles, due to the pandemic, were not actually on the roads for a while. We're able to continue to be using our simulation tools to discover other potential scenarios that might be of risk, to discover other areas where we might need to address or mitigate a particular hazard and so forth. And so the learning continued even though the vehicles weren't running. And so we were able to move quite readily once the vehicles were back on the road to make the readiness decision.
So with the pandemic, unfortunately now back in many parts of the country, almost worse than before, any danger that you may not be able to continue the work that's going on now?
Not that I know of, Fred. I mean, we've got a great health and safety organization as part of our safety office, and they have done everything possible, I think, to address the risks to employees and passengers and so forth that the pandemic might present. And so obviously we're going to abide by all the requirements of whatever jurisdiction we're operating in, but then we're going to go beyond that in terms of looking out for the safety of our passengers and our drivers who are still of course, in some of our vehicles, particularly in California. So again, we'll abide by what the rules are.
Right.
If in a particular jurisdiction, something happens to delay what's going on, then obviously we'll follow that restriction. But right now we don't see that another shutdown is inevitable.
And Alan and I had talked before about during the pandemic that companies like yours would be able to use the time without pressure, really, to have these vehicles out there to really take a look at what's going on. And it sounds like you made terrific use of that interim period. Yeah,
our engineering staff just didn't stop. They just they had the tools to keep on doing what they needed to do, and they did so.
In some sense, that may be a silver lining of COVID. Not that we want to find any silver linings and so on, but yes, I mean, it did give you the opportunity. You probably had the opportunity to use your test facilities and so on, your private test facilities, and to improve that. And of course, I guess last week, Rand put out their sort of safe enough assessment of the safety issue, and I complimented them on actually the title being safe enough, as opposed nothing's perfect except for you. Yeah, but nothing's perfect, and so
Alan, my family doesn't say that, so I'm glad.
But life's a risk, and whatever, and a whole bunch of other things associated with that. And I think it's really very good that they came out with that. The importance of getting really the perception of these being safe, and of course the other piece that I sort of commented on their report. One can't only look at the risks associated with this. One has to look at what are we getting for that. What's the mobility that we're able to provide for that? Because in a sense, the reward has to be part of it. And to me, the reward of being able to pull the driver is it gives you the opportunity to deliver really affordable, high quality mobility to essentially anybody in your ODD. And that to me is the big sociological gain in quality of life, gain in just value to society. And talk about that a little bit, or you see it that way?
Sure, yeah. Well, we say as kind of our basic mission, that Waymo's basic mission is to make it safe and easy for people and things to get where they're going. I mean, sounds simplistic, but that's the purpose. And then our philosophy, safety philosophy, which is mentioned in the papers, talks about reducing traffic injuries and deaths as we responsibly scale.
Right.
So those all fit with what you're talking about in terms of increasing mobility. You mentioned Rand. Rand has done some great reports
Right.
on automation. Interestingly, their report came out either the day before or the day after our report,
Yeah.
and yet went down many of the same paths in terms of exploring the various
Right.
methodologies and concluding that
Right.
there is no single factor analysis, no particular one methodology
Right.
that is really going to work. I thought it had, really helpful analysis on many of the issues, and all of these various analyses talk about the importance of simulation, given the vastness of
Sure.
of the driving task and how much you can learn from that. But again, mobility is and safety are what it's all about. And so the applications for mobility are obviously with regard to passengers, and I know it's a huge interest of yours to ensure mobility with regard to particularly underserved communities and so forth, which have mobility challenges right now. Hopefully we can, play a role in that. Certainly we've enhanced mobility where we are.
We want you to come to Trenton, okay? I mean, and try that operational design domain. I think, to me, the other thing that you did though, in your operational design domain, you did it over and over and over and over again with a human overseer. And I think reached a point to say, we didn't need that person, or we don't need that person in there going forward. That person really wasn't helpful. That's, to me, what I read. And to me, that's the key. Okay, then let's pull them. As soon as we pull that person, it, again, changes everything with respect to the ability to provide mobility on a continuing basis without forever alms for the poor or alms for the poor. We can do it affordably. Why? Because I know it's expensive now for you to do the LiDARs and all that stuff and does. But that's all Moore's Law stuff. The cost of those things is going to zero. The replication cost of the software is going to zero as you scale. You have an enormous opportunity to deliver this enhancement of the fundamental quality of life to folks who haven't been able to go from A to B when they wanted to go, because it just hasn't been there. They had to wait for a bus for who knows how long. It didn't go there. They had to transfer X times. What did they do? Who knows what? And so, I mean, that's just
many other circumstances too, where people would need mobility and aren't able to provide it for themselves. Dan, what kinds of monitoring are there when you don't have a safety driver on board?
Fred, we've got, back at kind of a home base, we of course have a whole staff in terms of those who can go out and help if a vehicle, does have a problem, needs to pull over or something like that. There's communication with that staff from within the vehicle if any passenger wants to, has a problem of any kind, and wants to ask a question, they can be in immediate voice contact with our staff, in terms of our roadside assistance staff and in terms of our rider assistance group. They can, there's no, I wouldn't call it monitoring, because that has certain connotations. Mm-hmm. But our folks in our roadside assistance group and in our dispatch group are aware of the location of every vehicle that's on the road at all times. They are not in any way driving those vehicles. This is not a remote driving operation, but they are in constant contact and awareness of where those vehicles are. Anybody in the vehicle has a problem, they can be in immediate contact. If the vehicle, for whatever reason, needs to actually pull over, stop somewhere, then we can get roadside assistance out there quite quickly. And of course, our remote assistance can also help the vehicle. If the vehicle itself has a question, here is a new road configuration due to something that just popped up with confusing work areas and so forth. So rather than make a guess, I want to see if I can get some assistance from other eyes. Not to do the driving. I really want to underscore it's not driving, but the vehicle itself can quickly seek some assistance from somebody who can actually see what's going on out there. But we don't have, it's more like air traffic control. It's not remote control.
Yeah, and that's an enormous value proposition to your customer. I mean, your customer. I have anxiety, Dan. I have anxiety. I mean, you've got to provide for me some anxiety relief, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all this is hey, so that I have a comfortable ride. I'd say, yeah, hey, that's good, that's great. I feel safe. I mean, that's don't give me a bunch of as long as I feel safe. And anything you can do to help that. So that the rider is whatever is just it's part of delivering the service. I mean, you're in the service business, right?
Right. Well, absolutely.
Right.
And there's another aspect of the business that fortunately doesn't depend on me, along with engineering. But our user experience people are outstanding, and the engineers are going to make the vehicle work correctly and safely without unreasonable risk. But our user experience folks are doing exactly what you're talking about. It's like how do we make sure that people are in fact comfortable? How do we make sure they've got whatever communication they need to have? I will say that when you do get in a vehicle, and it's pretty astounding the first time the vehicle rolls up with no one in it, stops right in front of you, and the door opens. And you climb in, anxiety dissipates real quickly, and that's what we like. And but there is that anxiety, as we said in the paper. There's been trillions of miles traveled by billions of people, always with a human behind the wheel. And so this is an experience, and people need to have the opportunity to get used to it, and we're providing that opportunity.
Yeah, it's never a surprise, though, right? I mean, people have signed consent agreements and et cetera.
Well, again, I'm not privy to all of the. I mean, I'm someone else in our legal staff really deals with all of the agreements that are that are signed. The app, it's like any app that you would use to hail a vehicle has certain portions of it, but I don't want to misinform you in terms of what actually in the app.
But you have every opportunity to know that, because you know who the customer is. You know whether or not you've served that customer. You probably know whether or not you've appropriately prepped them for this and for anticipation. Why should they be surprised? I mean, there's no reason they should be. So I'm sure you've done that. I mean, to me, that's a straightforward piece. The other piece of this thing is that for people, for your customers who are going from A to B, they're probably going to go someplace to get in, maybe not very far. And then once they get out, they're going to have to go someplace, maybe not very far, to get to where they go. But those pieces of the trip are also in some sense on you. You've got to make sure that, in some sense, maybe you don't got to make sure, but I'm sure you're concerned about making sure that the whole thing is a pleasant thing, right? I mean, they're your customers. You want to hit them a favor, you want them to hit the favor button, the 5-star button, the whatever button, right?
Right. Well, the whole pickup and drop off experience is something that our product team and our user experience folks focus a whole lot of energy on, and are very, very good, excellent at trying to figure out exactly how to make that experience one that is enjoyable and confidence producing from beginning to end. And so that, again, the methodologies paper, as you pointed out, focuses on getting there safely,
Yeah.
not getting into the vehicle, not getting out of the vehicle, not connecting with the vehicle. That all of that is very important, as you're pointing out, Alan.
Very important. And I think, you've look, hey, you're there doing it. Nobody else is. Okay. We hope
that's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line. And we're not hearing anything about it, which is beautiful. and of course, hope that you get to the point where you're increasing your operational design domain so that one's doing this for scale, right? I mean, you're not doing this for onesie twosies, are you? I mean, right?
Course, we coined the phrase purposeful gradualism, and
good, great, that's good, yeah. But
it's not just gradualism for its own sake. It's very purposeful. It's learning what an ODD of a various type is about. We've got a particular kind of ODD with its own challenges. In the Phoenix area, we've got new ODD that we're working on and learning in San Francisco. We've been operating in other parts of the Bay Area for a long time. We operate in Detroit and suburban Detroit and several other cities. I think we've operated in 10 cities or 25 cities, 10 states or something. So we're learning these various types of operational design domains. And as that learning picks up and we begin to have continued success in different ODDs, then we'll have clearly the knowledge and experience base to expand beyond where we are. But we know there's some impatience on the part of some in terms of
we're impatient.
In terms of how long it takes to get to the point where you take the driver out and you provide a mobility service. But we'd rather do it safely. Of course.
You have to do it safely, not rather. But you have to. I mean, right? I mean, you're stuck. I mean, you got it.
Right.
We will continue in just a moment, but this is a good time to remind you about our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. To get more info, head to motoetf.com. On the website there, check out the white paper. It's called The Smart Transportation Revolution. It's under the Insights and News tab. Great information there to help you make informed decisions. You may know ETFs can be a smart way to spread risk with investments and focus on a particular category of stocks. So the site again is motoetf.com. We're back with our guest, Dan Smith, Assistant General Counsel on Waymo. Such great information, Dan. And you mentioned branching out as you look beyond the Phoenix suburbs. What kinds of things are you looking at in deciding where to go? Besides Alan.
Yeah, I knew that Alan was gonna pop a question.
Yeah, of course.
I was aware of that. So as I say, we're looking at different kinds of operational design domains that present different challenges that we need to master. And San Francisco is close to home, close to the Waymo home in Mountain View, but also it presents new kinds of dense urban challenges that we hope to be able to master. And because of its proximity, it makes good sense for us. But there are a whole series of markets, and I'm not in the product group, and they're excellent in terms of figuring out where it makes sense to expand next. I'm really focused on law and safety, but I think so. It's a combination, Fred, in terms of where we go next. Of what really makes sense in a business sense, and is the technology ready to go to that place? And so. We're, as I said, we've been in 10 different states, 25 different towns and cities. But recently there was a decision just yesterday from the California Public Utilities Commission that opens the door to a driverless service now in California, which had not yet been opened. And so
the ability to charge for it rather than just
Yeah.
ferry people
right,
around for free.
Yeah.
right,
Right.
right. It is a business.
It's a big thing. It's ability to do a business. I mean, if this isn't a business, then I mean, come on. Then let Washington do it, or and they're not going to. Never mind. I won't go there.
But yeah, Fred, I don't have any greater clarity for you, other than to say that again, we're focusing on getting the technology to a very, very high level of safety and reliability in different kinds of operational environments, and we're doing that.
We talk to a lot of people too about the different public opinion polls and things like that that show people confused about automated vehicles and such. Certainly, you've done your part here with transparency, but the message to the public at large about what this is all about, what is it? What would you tell them from Waymo's perspective?
From Waymo's perspective, I would basically say that it is important to understand what we and others at a certain level of automation are providing, and that is a driving experience, a riding experience in which you do not have a driving role in a vehicle that someday could be of mixed use. You may choose to have that role. But in other words, I think what we would want to tell the public is we're trying to provide, and we are in fact already in particular applications, providing the driver for you. We're providing a safe driver for you, and that's not to be confused with ADAS and lower levels of automation, in which whatever one might call the system, it still requires driver input. So I think and driver attention and so forth. We're providing, developing, and now deploying a system that is designed to handle that whole task. I'm not sure if that's helping, Fred, but basically that's the distinction I think the consumer needs to understand.
Well, yeah, because many of the polls, when we talk about them, Alan, the point is that while people may say, "Oh, I don't like this, I'm afraid of it," or whatever, the follow-up is they really don't know very much about it.
They don't know. It's hard to describe it. They've been looking at Sunday supplements, who know whatever, and everybody's confusing everybody else, it seems like, and trying to make their system be something that it really isn't, and so on. I mean, to me, the key thing is who's responsible. If it's a driver assistance thing that I buy, I'm responsible. I've got to maintain it. I've got to, anything goes bad, it's on me, and they come and get me. Whereas if you're providing the mobility for me, then you're the one that's accepting that. You've picked it up. You say, hey, you're my customer. This is how I'm going to treat you, and I'm the one that's responsible for making sure that happens. I'm mixing my arms. I'm sure everybody understands what I'm trying to say here. That's an enormously different situation.
Right, and I know your aversion to SAE levels.
They're
I
terrible.
hate to raise the subject.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I'm a convert. I'm part of that group that works on that taxonomy, but basically, that's the line that I think people need to understand is what's the role of the occupant of the vehicle. Are you driving or not? That's the difference between level 2 and level 3.
Right.
SAE terminology. And I think that goes to Fred's question. We just, we mentioned in our methodologies paper that we're aware of concerns on the part of the public, of course, in terms of removing the driver, but we just want to make sure that in shaping that public perception, that the public is made aware of the real distinctions between what's now available in the market, which are ADAS systems, and what we're providing as a transportation service, and other companies as well are at levels 3 and 4. And although I don't know of anybody actually providing a level 4 service, true level 4 service without a driver.
Wait, you're providing level 4 without a driver, right?
Yes, we are. I said I don't know of anyone else doing that. I don't know of any other company doing
others,
that
right.
at this point.
Right.
But to Fred's point, I think there's just the confusion is because in some cases the media, but not you folks, but others have kind of lumped together all automation. And the lower levels of automation really have their benefits. Let's be clear on that.
Yeah.
And in fact, automatic emergency braking, even basic, electronic stability control, blind spot warning, which really isn't automation, but a warning. But all kinds of great technologies at the lower levels are really important to safety. However, if a vehicle is not able to drive itself, then that needs to be made clear.
That needs to be made clear, and in some sense, that whole business with respect to safety of driver assistance systems, I keep saying that the problem with us driving is not that we're not good drivers. We're all fantastic drivers. We also think ourselves as fantastic drivers, but unfortunately, some of us misbehave. And it's the darn misbehavior that's the problem. It's we either drink or we sleep or we whatever, or we speed or we have road rage or we text. I mean, that's misbehavior. I don't think your system texts, does it?
No, it does not. And
does it drink?
Do a lot of those things that
does it drink? Does it drink? No.
Not even gasoline.
No, I mean, go ahead, go.
Well, no, it's absolutely the case that a automated driving system that is a capable automated driving system as ours is, and others are under development. I don't mean to be suggesting that we're the only ones who are doing great things in this field, but an automated driving system does not commit the basic mistakes that even good drivers can sometimes
misbehaviors. They're no mistakes. They're misbehaviors. Go ahead. Never. I'll say you're allowed to say
very good drivers when they're not texting, not drinking, not speeding, not falling
sleeping,
not reacting slowly. They're generally over lifetimes pretty good drivers. But when you look at the crash data and you look at the predominance of those kinds of causes, speeding, drinking, and so forth, and these days texting, and also fatigue, those things will not happen with an automated driving system. And in fact, the data paper that we put out on October 30th, along with the methodologies paper, goes into the specific kinds of events, what we call contact events, that our vehicles were involved in within our operational design domain. And it points out that our vehicle did not have at any events of the kind that account for a very large proportion of in that ODD and nationally a very large proportion of crashes. The vehicle's not running off the road. It's not rolling over. It's not striking pedestrians and cyclists and so forth, which account for huge proportion of fatalities in driving. So again, it's important for everybody to understand that those kinds of human driving behaviors aren't possible with an automated driving system. But that's not enough. You have to go beyond that to demonstrate that the system itself is capable of doing what it needs to be doing to perform safely within its domain.
Beyond the type of service that you're offering now around Phoenix and the Phoenix area, what else is coming? What else is out there for you? What is Waymo doing?
Well, good question, Fred. For one big thing is trucking, what we call Waymo Via, VIA. Which is a whole different platform, of course. It's a Class 8 truck We've been doing this now for a couple of years, testing and developing our system there. And it's an illustration of how our safety methodologies are applied every day kind of on different platforms. So we've been doing the passenger platforms now for more than a decade. We're only, 2-3 years into applying the learning to a Class A trucking platform, which has completely different physics and geometry and trailers as opposed to being a single unit vehicle. And so all of that has to be taken into account in determining how to proceed safely with that new kind of platform. But certainly that's something that is really important to us, is developing our role in automated trucking. And so we've got a great part of our organization whose sole focus is on trucking. Also looking at delivery, of course. I think we've entered into an arrangement with Daimler Trucks, outstanding company, to provide trucks that will be automated vehicles. So that's one additional way. And then delivery services are kind of in between. They're also something to be looked at.
Dan, for whatever it's worth, I would like to encourage you for your Class 8 systems to actually bring them out earlier rather than later, and bring them out, in fact, when they are just driver assistance systems, when you continue to have the driver in there, as opposed to in the mobility place, where I think to me the business is for people who can't, or for whatever reason can't drive. In the Class 8 over the road trucking, those people, the people that do that, I mean, that's got to be one of the toughest jobs in the world. Okay, to basically keep that thing between two white lines and not crash, as a way to feed your family, 8, 10, whatever hours every day. And those folks need help. And in fact, a really good driver assistance, keeping them in the loop, the extraction. To me, the amount of benefit one gets out of extracting the person from the driver's seat or keeping him or her in there is relatively small. Why? Because you have that whole trailer full of expensive, valuable products. You almost can afford to pay the driver, and in fact, you can. But the problem is my goodness, you look at any statistic on safety of employment. Driving is one of the most unsafe jobs that exists, and so the opportunity to deliver value early to the trucking companies, I think, is there. So for whatever it's worth, anyway, that's my view on that one.
Yeah, well, thank you, Alan. And that again, our focus is on developing a level 4 system.
I'm sure
there are many companies who are doing really great work, which is important work for the various reasons that you pointed out. Because whether it's just something as basic as blind spot detection, or whether it's heavy vehicle automatic emergency braking, all kinds of other sorts of things, electronic stability control for the larger vehicles. Those kinds of basic technologies are all, I think, already, finding greater take rates in the industry, and I think that helps the drivers and the rest of us on the roads with those trucks. You're right. I mean, the long haul is one of the possible business cases for automated trucking, which would relieve those drivers of perhaps the most tedious part of it. While if with that model, if a company were to choose that model, kind of going hub to hub, would relieve the most tedious part, and yet human drivers might then do more of the drayage and the final delivery work. And no one knows exactly how it's all going to play out. But those long miles, as you say, over very long distances, are very challenging for human drivers. There's also, from what I've read, a shortage of drivers, and certainly automation in trucking can help us.
I mean, it's a tough job. I mean, so who wants to do it, right? So that's why there's a shortage. You make it so it's more pleasant to do, and it's better, and you use the person better while you're done. It doesn't. My view is, as I've looked at it and used to be doing a lot of work for trucking companies, taking the driver out is not as critical as it is providing the mobility to people in communities as you're doing, and they're, you can't afford to drive. But anyway, whatever. It's just anyway.
Dan, any thoughts to share about the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and their advance notice of proposed rulemaking on the safety of the future of self-driving vehicles?
Well, of course, for that just emerged.
That just came out.
Just came out.
And so, Waymo hasn't built any official position on it yet. But I will say this, having read it, I thought my former colleagues at NHTSA did a really thorough job in terms of outlining all of the important issues that have to be taken into consideration with regard to how to regulate in automated driving system. That's kind of what the ANPRM really delved into, was what kind of the obstacles are to regulating ADSs. And I will say, as a former regulator for 37 years, that it's a unique challenge, because unlike a particular technology, again, like electronic stability control or windshield wipers, for which is a federal motor vehicle safety standard, this is an entire driving task technology, which is applied in separate and very different operational design domains. So the regulatory matrix is quite large, and I think that's what the document was seeking input on, was is this regulatory challenge something that can be addressed either in a holistic way or in a piecemeal way, or how should the regulatory agency get its hands around the task of regulating this kind of vast subject of automated driving?
Yeah, Alan, you've mentioned from time to time the possible need for a new kind of entity.
That's what I was about to jump in and suggest. I mean, if you look at it, it's done a very good job of crash mitigation. Okay, I mean, a fantastic job of regulating crash mitigation. This is crash avoidance fundamentally, which may in fact be different. It's not just an asterisk on crash mitigation, maybe. And in fact, given that it is so holistic, does it need its own mode? I mean, should it have should it different, as opposed to, putting asterisk as in baseball statistics, different length season or whatever. I don't know. I just thought,
well, our policy office would.
I know, and I don't want you to put
on that. But I will say this: that when you look at the federal motor vehicle safety standards, there is a whole series of them that deal with crash avoidance. Even the braking standard is a crash avoidance standard, not a crash avoidance standard. The electronic stability control standard, and so on and so forth.
That's true.
And NHTSA has very, very, very smart, experienced engineers who have been delving into this from the time I was there, before I was there, and they're still studying it and understanding it very, 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 very well. And so, that's, again, our policy office can opine on whether there should be, and that's up for the next administration to figure out who's able to handle this. But we mentioned trucking. Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration also has a very, very large role to play Because motor carriers are very heavily regulated. And I would say that, with regard to level 4 driving, the purpose is not so much as to remove a driver as to provide all of the safety that a level 4 system can provide. In other words, if the driver itself isn't going to fall asleep, isn't going to do all those things we talked about before, and is really astute at seeing things much further away than a human driver may, and avoiding those pre-crash situations, then the safety benefits themselves could be even more pronounced at level 4 than at the lower levels.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well, terrific.
Great.
Alan, we need to remind people that you've still got the 4th annual Princeton Smart Driving Cars Summit in the planning stages. It's going to be actually a series this time out because of the pandemic and virtual, obviously. So we want people to keep an eye on the website for that.
We hope we can get Dan back for that and to do that. But yes, please look out for that, and we'll be in contact. I again, instead of trying to do it in 2.5 days, you can't keep people's attention. I mean, if you're not feeding them and offering them beverages, they tend to drift away. So maybe, slot each week might work better. Again, the objective is to get a discussion going. I mean, to get people to think. I mean, there are lots of YouTubes and so on and so forth. People can sit there and watch. I mean, these are all open questions. They continue to be open questions, and we still have a heck of a lot of work to do. It's nice that someone has taken the first step, though. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Dan, on all that you've been doing there, the focus on safety, the real focus on safety, and the continued success. And thank you so much for taking the time with us.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Fred and Alan. I do have to say that give credit where it's due, and that's to our outstanding engineering and safety group, our leadership, CEO John Kravchik, and all of our executive leadership team. I do very little for the cause, but also anybody who sees this and wants more information on Waymo can go to waymo.com, particularly the safety portion there, to see the things that we've been talking about today.
Yes, please do. You must read those reports. They really are must read.
Well, they can find Waymo information. So
Waymo.
Thank you to our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF. The ticker symbol for the ETF is MOTO, and more information is available at motoetf.com. You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, also on Anchor FM, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Spreaker, SoundCloud, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play us too. You can find my tech reports at textination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alain Kornhauser. Thank you for taking the time to listen or watch. And please continue to stay safe.
And have a great weekend. And thank you so very much, Dan.
Thank you very much. Both of you do a great service.
Thank you.